get into it. I prepared a little bit of something here, and so welcome to whatever this is named. I think in the next couple weeks or months, we'll kind of figure it out. Two dudes talk tunes. Vermont dads talk tracks. The Madaila and Wolverine show. Vermont music podcast. I mean, that doesn't exist somehow.
Really? It's so generic. You'd be surprised.
I did some research.
Or I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Vermont music. What was it?
Just the Vermont music podcast. It does not exist.
There's actually something funny about that because it's so like basic and
I know
like clear.
Yeah. I was thinking about like a logo with like the state and then like, you know, cartoon versions of us like peeking out on either side of it. You know, like, and maybe the state of Vermont's like playing a guitar or something like that. You know, like you could
slowly spinning the logo, like the state.
Yeah,
I can see it.
So this is, you know, a video sort of podcast where we talk with Vermont musicians about their music, their process, and their lives. Hosted by myself, Will Andrews, aka Wolverine, and
Mark Daly, aka Madaila. Woohoo!
Woo. So in this week's episode, I will be interviewing Mark. And then the next time we do this, Mark will be interviewing me. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to tune in. Now let's get to it. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm overjoyed to be talking with Mark Daly, a.k.a. Madaila, a.k.a. Ernest, a.k.a. stay-at-home dad forever. Mark is a Vermont-based musician, producer, comedian, father, and owner of a silky smooth mid-range jump shot. Yeah. Mark and I have been a part of the same music community for the past 10 to 15 years, but it wasn't until about a year and a half ago that we connected and became friends. From afar, I always loved Mark's music and looked up to his approach to putting on unique shows and musical experiences in town, but we never connected personally or musically. You know, a year and a half ago, I texted him, invited him over to my house, have some dinner and some drinks to listen to some music
which was lovely, by the way.
That was fun, right?
Yeah.
And since that meeting, Mark and I have become friends and collaborators. And recently we put our heads together to create this sort of musical podcast in an effort to talk with our friends about music, unite our incredibly robust musical community, and offer up a place for local artists to talk about and promote their musical endeavors in a fun and low-key setting. So, Mark, how the hell are you, buddy?
I'm doing pretty well. You know, I am very deep in this new record I'm working on. Very deep. But yeah, just kind of like dadding it up hard, and almost in every like free second I have, I'm like thinking or working on the album, which is kind of what I've been doing for like, I don't know,
forever,
3 years, 4 years, who knows how long. I mean, I'm always working on albums.
Yeah.
But the last like 3, kind of ever since, no, let's say 4 years, not necessarily when my son was born. He's 3.5 now.
Yeah.
But yeah, something crazy happened when he was born. Like the inspiration and the tunes started flowing even harder. So, and we're prepping for another baby boy coming any day now. Due date's less than a month away, but that's the crazy thing about labor and birth is you never know when it's gonna happen. It feels like it's probably gonna happen sooner than February 17th, but still, just music, parent life, you know, living the dream.
Yeah.
Although it's, you know, I've got a great thing going on, great setup, but you know, it's like we were saying before. It can still be hard, you know. Parenting can be weird and isolating and not always a walk in the park, as you know. So
I do
I've
know.
been doing.
Yeah, well, that's great. Let's like rewind it and kind of start a little bit from the beginning here and do it. So like Mark, you want to give a little background information for the people? Like, where'd you grow up? Like some of that sort of good foundational stuff.
Sure, foundational stuff. So I grew up not too far from here, down the road. I grew up in Middlebury, Vermont. Great little town. I got a video camera when I was like, I don't know, 10 or 11. And I can remember just geeking out on that thing and making goofy stuff. And like my cousins would come over for Thanksgiving or Christmas, and we'd put on plays, and like after a few, I'd like start writing a script before they came and just have like a script ready for them. And we'd perform in front of my whole family, which I come from a big family of 8 kids. I'm one of 8.
Wow.
So yeah, just kind of like that glimpse of the writing plays. That's kind of like like arts coming in at an early age, like music and just performing and theater and all that. But yeah, it came from a big family. We all have gone to UVM, all 8 of us.
Wow.
Yeah. So I went to UVM, did theater for like 2 years, even though I knew I loved music more, but I was like, I don't know if I want to do music school. Is that going to like ruin it for me?
Totally. Yep.
But after my sophomore year, I took a semester off because it just like wasn't feeling school a ton. And I just used that time because I started out as a drummer, but I had been dabbling with guitar since late high school, and then more seriously once college started. And then that semester off, I kind of just like practiced a ton and like started learning jazz, and like decided to switch to a music major. And so it's kind of just like getting my chops established. And so then I became a music major, somehow graduated college.
Congrats.
No, my grades were okay, but I mean that in the like music sense. Like I've never been that great at theory and all that stuff. So I don't know how I passed that stuff.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience. Learned piano in college, learned how to like solo besides like the blues pentatonic, which is so easy to fall into that as a guitar player.
As a trumpet player too. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if I'm rushing through this background, but that's kind of like the base. And then I started playing in bands in high school. My first band was called Pale Moon because we used to drive around Middlebury College and moon college kids.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So we came up with the name Pale Moon. And Eric was in that band, Eric Meyer, who's a longtime friend of mine. And he's been in Chamberlain and in Madaila, which were my 2 like more like serious professional bands, touring bands. So I started playing in bands in high school, and then did the college jazz thing. I was in like an acoustic folk duo, and then that kind of birthed this band Chamberlain that I was in. That was like an indie rock band, and we toured a lot nationally. It's kind of like we opened up for Grace Potter really quickly. We like ascended really fast and then kind of like descended really fast. I think the band was maybe together for 3 years, maybe not even 3 years.
Okay.
And then I kind of like took a year or two to like explore new genres. And that's when I started writing the Madaila stuff. Then I started this solo project called Plato Ears. And that was sort of the foundation of Madaila. Way more like Chamberlain was more indie rock. Madaila became way more like upbeat dance rock, but still, I think that I'm starting to go off here, but I think I answered your question. Just laying a base down.
I mean, I remember the first time seeing Chamberlain. Remember when Radio Bean had that festival behind Burlington College?
Oh yeah.
That was it called? What was it called? It wasn't called.
I'll remember it. I keep wanting to say Festivus, but that's not what it was.
Festivus was something else, right?
Yeah. It's that Festivus for the rest of us. No. What was that called? Oh,
It's so close. It was
I
such
think
an
they only did it 1 or 2 years.
it was so much fun. It was like
Yeah.
the most fun. Because I remember we played Jaffe
But
Ryder
no,
played.
that was Madaila though, I
What
think.
was it?
Yeah, that was Madeila's first show.
Okay, because I remember we
In
had
the field.
and there were
Yeah.
two stages. So then
Yes.
one band would be playing, and then one band would end, and then the next band would just start, and everyone would just turn around.
The Precipice.
The
That's what it was
Precipice.
called.
Boom. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember seeing that first. It must have been the first show that you guys did as Madaila, because we either
Yeah.
finished. I think we finished on one side, and you guys started right away. And I remember just being like, "Oh, this is my type of shit here. I like this a lot." And I didn't
Nice.
really know you guys or the music that well, but I remember just hearing it instantly. Because it wasn't as like electronic sort of as Madaila ended up feeling and sounding like later
Yeah.
on. It was more that sort of combination of that Chamberlain to Madaila, which was a
Right.
little bit more grungy, not really grungy, but a little bit more raw, and not as
Yeah.
clean.
I remember that's probably because our backing tracks weren't working for that show.
Oh, okay.
Not that we had that many, but we had like some electronic drums to kind of just like beef it up.
Yep.
I remember that show so vividly because it was like so late at night. I had
Right.
been, if you had played right before us, you can attest, just like waiting around for so long.
Yeah.
And I think I was just like overly anxious and nervous because our first show.
Right.
But yeah, the backing tracks didn't work. But I remember we also tried to we borrowed marching drum stuff from
Yep.
my old high school band teacher, and we tried to pull this march out of the show at the end. Do you remember that?
I have a very vague memory of that. I mean, I also was there for a long time prior to my
Yeah.
set and afterwards, so it was a little cloudy at that point, I think.
Yeah. Who were you playing with at that show? Jaffe Ryder?
Yeah, I was playing trumpet with Jaffe Ryder. I remember we had Tommy Morse, another awesome trumpet player, Rob Morse's brother, who's just an incredible trumpet player. He sat in with us that show. I remember it because people were taking pictures. It was like one of those things where it was just you got like an awesome video and and some sick pictures afterwards from whoever the photographer was. And I saw those pictures recently and I was like, oh yeah, remember that. It was fun because I was there. It was a weekend thing. And I remember being there Friday night, just hanging out. It was when everyone was like we were younger. I didn't have kids. We were just all like hanging,
Totally.
and
Totally.
it was
And it was like new and fresh and exciting. And you could walk there from downtown essentially.
Right.
It wasn't that far.
right.
Yeah, it was super cool.
Yeah, that was pretty solid. Yeah, so that's kind of like your sort of early introduction to the local scene was like throughout all the stuff. Like, do you remember, like, even if you go back to the Pale Moon days, like what was your first like gig in the Burlington area that you remember doing? Where was it? What was it like?
I definitely remember playing at Nectar's.
Yeah.
With them on a Monday or Tuesday night
at like 6:30
with Pale Moon, and we were just so psyched because it was like Burlington.
Yep.
And which is obviously Vermont's biggest city, and we're from Middlebury's like an hour 45 minutes south, but so it's just cool to go to Burlington and to have legit sound.
Yep.
I don't think many people came, and I feel like we had a really long time slot that we didn't really know what to do with.
Was that at the Nectar's that when they had the side stage, like the old one, or was it still when the newer stage in the back?
It's the same. It was the same
Okay.
stage that's there now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not that old, but
Yeah, I played at the first time I played at Nectar's was
Did you?
was the side stage 2003, 2004, something like that.
Nice.
Yeah.
See, I think that's cool. I almost wish I had been around for that, because when I hear that stage, my head just goes straight towards thinking of Fish in there.
Right.
Because that's in that context, I've heard of that stage the most via early Fish days.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I've heard that too. So you mentioned like the Chamberlain stuff, like national touring. Like, what was that like the first time you guys were broing out in the van? Like, how far did you go? Like, what was that? What was that like?
It was literally our first tour ever, anyone's. Um, and it was opening up for Grace.
Wow.
Because Scott Tournay, the guitar player, produced our first album.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure when they asked us to go on tour, we still didn't even have a van. So
Okay.
we're like, oh shit, we got to buy a van and a trailer. So it was our first time touring ever. So and you're just young. So that's going to be fun no matter what. But
Yep.
B, it was like in a lot of cool big theaters. We played the Fillmore in San Francisco and it was sold out.
Awesome.
And her crowd would come early too. So it was like packed for the opener.
Wow. That's sick.
So that was cool. And so it was kind of like this Cloud9 feeling. And looking back on it now, like I would have savored it even more because just like as the years have gone on, you realize how much of a like slog it is and how hard it can be. And we almost like started at the very top.
Yeah.
At the very beginning. So there's no like reference point there or like, so it was just amazing. I remember loving the pageant in St. Louis was a really cool theater. And so, yeah, first tour ever. And we were going as far west as you could go in the country. I think we did like half of their tour, but like, yeah, it took us to San Diego, Seattle, Spokane, like a lot of Minneapolis. Like it was so cool. Very fun. I remember the first or second show we were like we're trying to sell merch and like signing autographs on the CDs and just being like, oh my God, like I had no idea it's going to be like this.
That's awesome.
Like we're just kids, you know.
Yeah.
We're probably like, I was probably 25.
Yeah.
No. Never mind. That was when I met my now wife. I think I was 25. I was probably 23.
Okay.
Or 22 even. So yeah, it was just like super amazing and a bit of a it's almost so great, but almost like hard because after that, then it's like a harsh reality.
Right.
Then you realize then you're playing in like Ithaca for 2 people and you're like, fuck, this isn't what that was like at all.
Right.
Yeah.
How many dates was that?
Lucked out.
How many dates was the set or the tour with Grace?
I think we were out for like a month.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was an incredible experience. And we got to open up for them a couple times after that throughout the next few years. So that was cool. But yeah, it was a wild experience. And but just like harsh wake up call afterwards, you know, like just realizing that that was like rare.
Yeah, for sure.
but it made us want to get back to that.
Yeah, right.
And there's still a part of me that thinks I can or we can. And that's not to say we haven't achieved anything better than that since. Like there's been different kind of accomplishments, but in terms of like venue size and I don't know, probably spectators, that was like up there.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of people in Burlington resented Chamberlain because they're like, who are these fuckers? Like, where'd they come?
Yeah.
They haven't paid their dues. Like, where'd they come from? And came out of nowhere. And all of a sudden we're like opening up for Grace. But we did, I think, having Scott produce that record. And that was at Tank, actually, the old Tank with Ben Collette.
Yep. With Ben, my guy.
So that gave us an in. And we kind of came on the scene. We had all been in bands before, and this was like intentionally like, this is a professional band. We want to like make it and tour and all that. So,
Did you guys ever do any sort of stuff with the members of Grace's band? Did you ever come up and sing background on one of her songs, or like on that tour?
Yeah, actually a bunch of times we'd come and sing backup.
That's
I think it was a lot of the time it was a couple times we sang Golden by My Morning Jacket, I
mm-hmm.
think. And there was this other like not Andy Richter. That's a comedian, isn't it?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's like Conan's guy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was maybe it was something Richter, but yeah, we went up and sang quite a few times, which was super cool. And I remember the Fillmore one, because it was the Fillmore and it was like super special. They like gave us whiskey backstage, and I think all of us like don't really remember going on stage with Grace, because that was like an hour and a half, 2 hours after we had played, and we were just like getting after it at that point.
Yeah, I mean you're 23 and you're playing at the Fillmore. You're like let's let it rip.
And it was sold out. It was like what is this?
Wow. Well, that's cool, man. That's like, and the music that you guys were playing, like, did you feel really confident in that music that you're like this should be opening up for Grace Potter type music?
Yeah, I'd say so. It was like in that same genre, but not totally the same. And yeah, it felt good. Like had matured via like songwriting wise.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely like looking back on it now, pretty like in a way brooding or like dark. It was indie rock and it was like heavy, but like the content matter was pretty dark. And like I wasn't like screaming, but I was definitely like pushing my voice way more than I do now.
Yeah.
Like falsetto honestly helps the vocal cords so much because you're not like forcing it as much. And it's like more, I don't know what it is. It's more like up in here and not down in here. So I was like really shouting a lot, singing. And so that was like a cool experience or like learning lesson, because when you're on the road for that long and playing shows every night, you like realize how much endurance and like keeping your vocals
right
up to snuff is like so important and like actually kind of hard, especially when you're young and like partying every night. That doesn't help. So yeah, I felt confident in the music. It's just funny looking back on it now and be like, now I'm kind of like, oh man, it's kind of like emo. But like my friend Ethan wrote a lot of the lyrics and they're great lyrics. And I had like gone through a really big breakup. So it was like that kind of like angst, early 20s angst.
That's awesome. And then from there, like, what's the transition from Chamberlain to Madaila? Is that?
It was a little weird at first, like just because I was totally on my own again, but I was still young. So there was still like a lot of hope and promise. And I'd like just met my, who is now my wife.
Right.
I had just met Lexi like a few months before the band broke up. So I like had distractions and like things going on that it wasn't like, oh, this is, because band breakups are hard, as you know.
Yeah.
So I wasn't totally like, oh, this is the worst. Like, I don't know what to do. It was kind of like, it was weird, but also I felt a lot of freedom to explore new music and stuff like that, and just like work on my writing chops. And I remember living in my dad's apartment for a little bit in Middlebury, which was funny and weird. And I was like working at a coffee shop in Middlebury, but like tapping into these new cool sounds. And it was really upbeat and uplifting stuff, kind of like helping, and in a way it was like helping me get out of that Chamberlain slog and like feelings hurt and all that like confusion that comes with bands ending. So I just started making more like dancey stuff and exploring more with like electronic music and like 808 drum machines and all that jazz. And then I started kind of like testing it on my own, doing this solo thing called Play-Doh ears, where I was playing guitar and sometimes drums standing up and singing, but like a lot of like backing tracks going on. There's nothing I saw like happening long term, but it was just a way to like test the songs out and to just like get back out performing for people. And I'd like wear really goofy stuff. I've always loved dressing up, and like coming from a big family, our dress up closet was super fucking awesome.
Legit.
A lot of stuff to work with. So I remember just kind of throwing weird stuff on for shows and just embodying this mantra sort of just being myself.
Yep.
Because Chamberlain didn't fully allow me to be myself. Kind of that they wanted me to be like dark and mysterious, but I'm just kind of like a goofy, fun-loving guy. So I was embracing that with the outfits and then that's sort of how what carried through with Madaila too. When we first started, especially, we were wearing like tight spandex.
I remember
like ridiculous things.
But also,
which our dad bods probably wouldn't agree with anymore. But
yeah, I remember that. I think it was the first single. What was the name of the first single that you released as Madaila?
Give Me All Your Love, I think.
Yeah. And that was like accompanied with a really good video, but then also like a couple really good press photos, or like the single photo, you know, it was this bright, you know, just like neon, but really catchy on the eye. And I remember that the timing of that too, because that was right around the time where I started to like focus on writing my own sort of like music stuff. And I remember listening to that and being like, oh man, this guy's like miles ahead. I gotta catch up to this. Cause it was like, the art was sick. The music was really cool and had this very unique sort of vibe, sound, mixing, you know, everything. And I remember it was just, there was lots of really solid press locally, especially. I mean, you probably know more about the national or like, you know, further local stuff, but like in Burlington, it was like, this is it, man. It was really cool. Like I remember just that splash just out there right away.
Yeah. Well, thank you for the kind words.
Yeah.
First off. Yeah, well, it's pretty wild. I still have this vivid memory of like walking on North Winooski Ave and like someone was drinking outside the OP, or just this stuff would happen to me in Burlington. This woman just started singing "Give Me All Your Love" to me. She was
that's
like,
awesome.
"Give me all your love," and it was just like so wild. That song sort of just like took Burlington, and I think like the video helped. It was super solid, and it had like a bunch of my friends in it, and some like iconic spots in Burlington too, like especially on the waterfront. And Mike Luoma at the Point really dug the video and the song, and he started slinging that tune out on the airwaves, so that helped. I think it was on that radio a bunch. But yeah, I just like people were really into that song. It's so cool when that woman like sang me the line as I was walking by. I was like, and I remember just being like, yeah, cool, thanks.
You just like high five yourself later on and be like, I made it, dude. Like,
yeah. But what else? What was your question?
Just about
I was just thinking, a solid song, and the video is fun, and I always thought it was like, well, for a long time it's like Madeila's biggest song, but then weirdly, and this isn't a benchmark like end all be all, but on Spotify the song "The Dance" has has surpassed "Give Me All Your Love" in plays like by a ton. It's like over 1 million now or something. But that kind of surprised me. I just figured "Give Me All Your Love" would like be the one for a while. Or like every band has that big first song that people just hang on to forever.
Yep.
like Creep for Radiohead, or like, I
Such
don't
an
know.
awesome song.
There's a lot of examples out there. That was the first one that popped in my head.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great song. I mean, that was from,
Thanks.
I remember the video too. Was there like a party in a backyard or something like
Yeah,
that? Yeah. Yeah.
that was at Lexi and my house, or our apartment.
Yeah. I
I even
remember.
remember the neighbors all being like, "What the hell's going on back
Yeah.
there?"
They're
That was a wild night.
yeah, man, that was just cool. I just remember that pretty vividly because, like, you know, I guess I keep on coming back to this sort of no kids sort of thing, but there is as you mentioned before when we were talking, there's a clear delineation between, you know, just very obviously between life as a musician and a human before and after kids. And we'll get into that a little bit later,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's like the initial sort of thing. And you want to talk a little bit about, like, I think when I think about Madaila, I think of like, the early Madaila, it was like, the show at Essex Fairgrounds, the show on the boat, the Halloween party, the Madaila on Main. There was this sort of, it was like, we're not just going to play at higher ground. We're going to do this sort of cool sort of stuff that kind of reflected what your music was doing. This, it's like, this is great music, but it's also unique in its own sort of way. And that was the kind of performance sort of piece to it. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I just remember us sort of wanting to create more than just a show and have it just be like this whole night, this whole evening, like a whole experience, and make it super special. Because I think we had noticed, and it's so easy to do, especially in a smaller town, of just oversaturating yourself, or
Totally.
overplaying.
Yep.
And the sort of just like make them wait for it.
Yep.
And when we do play it, make it like this big massive thing. It was obviously like a lot of work, but because we weren't playing so often, we had like time to plan a lot of things. Yeah, I just remember wanting it to be more than just a show. And
Right.
that was based on a lot of sorry, I'm not speaking clearly, but that was that was a reflection of like the spaces we were in.
Right.
The spaces were unique.
Yep.
And like we tried to have different stuff going on around the show. Like, at least I remember that at the fair, we like tried to have it be a fair, and there are like all these little games off to the side. Yep. And just give it like this full aesthetic. And I think the Halloween one had a big time vibe to it too. Mm-hmm. Then there was like multiple bands and like disco phantom spinning, and then it just had that Halloween, like we balled out on the decorations like a ton.
Yeah.
And our very first show, not our very first show, we started with that classic like residency at Nectar's, but our big like album release show is at City Hall.
Yeah.
And the first record was called The Dance.
Yeah.
And so we called that The Dance, and we kind of just wanted it to feel like a dance.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, that's kind of just, that's what sums it up. Just wanting to play less, but when we do, just make it really big and more than just a show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you nailed it. I remember being like, oh man, every time I'd hear about it, I'd be like, dang, they did it again. You know, it's just like such a cool idea. And then it was just like well thought out, well executed. And people weren't doing it that way. You were either oversaturating and playing all the time, or you'd come around once every 6 months and do something like that. And
right.
I do
remember noticing a few bands follow suit after we did that.
Yeah.
And the Madaila on Main thing was just incredible. That's like one of the best memories I'll ever have of a show. Like that surpasses like the Fillmore, because it was like our festival, and it was like right on Main Street, never
Yep.
been done before. Like we shut down this entire block right in downtown Burlington and played on the street, as you know. But yeah, we wanted to take it even. It was kind of like, where do we go from there? That was like
Yep.
such an epic thing, but I wanted to do like Centennial Field. That would have
Yeah.
been so sick.
Yeah,
But
that's really cool.
that was out of the question. Like noise ordinance something. I remember Higher Ground being like, James Taylor tried to pitch that, and like he couldn't get it, so you're not gonna be able to do it. But we were like, oh, we could all wear like baseball uniforms,
Oh, man.
and like have it be this whole, yeah.
That would have
Maybe
been
someday. Who knows? Probably
Yeah.
not. But
that would have been pretty cool. At least for the photo op with you guys all in the Lake
yeah,
Monsters.
the other big thing would have been, could we have filled enough of the seats there? Like that's a pretty big venue. But yeah, it was cool playing on a boat. The Madaila on Main was really special. But I have really fond memories of the Scream too, that Halloween one at the aquarium.
Yeah.
That was just crazy night.
So then, and I mean, I don't know if I'm missing something, but what's Madaila now?
Ooh, it's a great question. It's a loaded question. And I think it's ever evolving, like, or it's an evolution for sure. Basically what happened in a nutshell was, even before we had our son, I was feeling a little burnt out on touring.
Yeah.
Just like financially, not super viable, physically draining,
Yep.
Mentally weird. But then when we had a kid, it made it even harder. It exacerbated that even more. And I knew I knew I had to be the stay-at-home parent, like the daily child care provider.
Yep.
And I was just like, we tried it for about a year. We were like slowly slowing down and unraveling. And I was still trying to give it, put my best foot forward. But yeah, it was just really weird going from like isolated with a baby, super mellow, to like on tour, staying out super late and, playing loud music and, the partying that can come with it. So it was actually kind of cool to go from like, they're just stuck on such different sides of the spectrum.
Right. Yeah.
Just having a kid was tough. And I just knew I kind of had to choose between band family and like my real family. And it was a long breakup process, but I tried to do it the best I could, like as least hurtful as I could.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just, I think I already said grueling, but it was just like it was just so exhausting. Slowly breaking up. And like my heart wasn't fully in it at the time. And we called it a hiatus, and we could still come back. Well, that's the thing I really want to say and let people know, is that Madaila has not gone anywhere.
It's alive and well.
Call me, people. So basically had a son, took a little hiatus.
Yep.
And it was hard too, because we had a lot of momentum at that time.
Yeah.
But then like our manager stepped away, and then we lost Willie, but we replaced him with another amazing, like Middlebury, a fellow Middleburian, Walker Allen.
Yeah.
So that was fine, but like it just got harder, losing the manager. And then like me and Eric are kind of like, Eric's a keyboard. He's a keyboard player. We were co-owners, and so he had the most, but other than me, like the most stake in the band, and like had put the most time in, and like energy, and lack of money. So it was tough for him, and like our relationship was certainly wavered from time to time, you
Yep.
know, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So we went on hiatus, but I never like stopped doing music. Like, if anything, I just have taken the time away from playing out so much
Yep.
to honing in my songwriting skills. And I'm just like a hermit in the studio here, just like writing away. And I'm like chasing something. I bet you can attest to this, or like maybe all musicians, like, what are we? You got to be doing it. Hopefully, a lot of it is for yourself.
Yeah.
But like, there's this other thing. Like, what are we chasing? Validation or success? Or, and like when you have a kid, you kind of like redefine what success is.
Mm-hmm.
And you just want to be happy. And I just wasn't that happy touring, and I just knew it wasn't going to be super viable to keep pushing so hard as we were trying to make it as a band, and still be like there for my wife and my son. So we went on hiatus, but I've sort of been rebooting and kickstarting Madaila again, and it's kind of turned into a solo project due to the pandemic in a way, but also just due to like how the hiatus happened. And I'm just able to luckily record a lot of stuff right here. So I've just been trying to shell out as much material as I can. So Madeila's like fully functioning and chugging along. I've put out two records in 2020, and I've got, as you know, one coming real soon.
Yep.
And yeah, so there might be new personnel going forward. It could be like a nice chance to like a clean slate or like rejuvenation. But I definitely want to like get back out, like when the world
Yeah, allows
gets back to normal. I'd love to start playing again and keep at it. And I'm gonna have all these new songs to play out for people that no one's heard really, because there hasn't been any live shows. So
Right.
I know that was long-winded, but I could talk about like,
oh, I know
what's happened I still am trying to be able to just describe or define everything that happened, and it's definitely kind of fucked me up. The Chamberlain breakup I got over pretty quickly, but this Madaila one, especially because it's like, yeah, I guess they're both my doing. I was going to say, especially because this one was my doing, but yeah, it's just the things that you can go through in your head. I have no regrets whatsoever, but that still doesn't mean that it hasn't been hard.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned something too, just about like what are we searching for? And the thing that you said in passing is just happiness, just in general.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you need to make tough decisions in order to like protect yourself or to achieve that sort of level of happiness. And
yeah. And happiness, I think, is the greatest success, or should be.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And the hardest to achieve.
Yeah.
Right.
It can be elusive, I guess.
Yeah, no, for sure.
On days like today that I had.
Yeah, right. Well, hopefully this is bringing some more happiness to be able to talk about yourself here. So it's kind of just a perfect sort of, segue into just talking a little bit about your writing and recording process. So like, what would it be like if someone watched you write a song?
What would it be like?
Like, do you have a normal, I know some people have like this checklist they do. I got to do this first and then this and then that. And some people are like, voice note while they're on their bike and then they go back and they resurrect it. Some people start with a drum beat. Like, do you have a process or is it just freestyle, or like, how'd you describe it?
Well, I think that's one really cool thing about, or like beautiful thing about songwriting, is that there is no like right or wrong way to do it. There's certainly like formulas or techniques to like help you, but I wouldn't say I write a song the same way every time. With Chamberlain, I wrote the songs purely on guitar. And then once Chamberlain was over, felt kind of pigeonholed, and like I was doing the same thing, writing on guitar, or just like moving the capo around just to make it sound like a little bit different, but
Yeah,
it's
right.
still like the same shapes and
Yep.
shit like that.
Yep.
So with most of Madaila, I started writing with a beat first.
Yep.
I'd start with a beat, or I'd be using this thing called by Native Instruments called the Machine,
Yep.
which actually you can play melodic stuff on it, but it's just like in a 4x4 16 squares, so it's not like laid out like a piano.
Yep.
But you learn how to
Right.
play chords on that, and it changes your playing and almost like makes your playing a little bit more basic, not as busy,
Mm-hmm.
which I liked. So I wrote a lot of Madaila with like the beat first, or like some synth stuff with the Machine. And the cool thing with like the record I put out last spring called West was more of a folky record, and that was kind of me coming back full circle and writing on guitar again.
Mm-hmm.
And that felt really good. I kind of like fell back in love with the acoustic guitar. And like it was the beginning of the pandemic, I had no one to play with, so like I find acoustic is like, it just, the way it resonates, it's like one of the best things to accompany like a soloist.
Mm-hmm.
That and piano probably. And then so a lot of West was written on guitar, and then for Madaila, the one I put out right at Halloween, that kind of went back to the sort of like beat or like synth chord foundation.
Yeah.
And then with this new one, hilariously, I got my son 2 Christmases ago this like tiny 6-string guitar,
Mm-hmm.
like nylon string from China, like $50. Thought nothing of it. But here we are, fast forward like 2 years later, and it's just lying around, and I'm like in our sunroom on the floor playing with my son a lot, and say I get bored or there's like a down second, like downtime, I started picking up this guitar and just like messing around on it. And this is it, actually, right here.
Oh yeah.
This little guy.
I mean, it sounds great on the stuff that you've been sharing with me, you know?
It's really hard to keep it in tune, and it's like a piece of crap, but I've come to like really love the tone of it. And so hilariously, this whole new record has been written on this tiny little guitar, and I would have never have expected that. So it's just hilarious and just wild to me that is like the catalyst behind all these tunes. So that's just scratching the surface via, that's like the base, like the foundation of how I start songs.
Yep.
But then, yeah, I usually go in and do a lot of like MIDI stuff on the computer. Obviously like guitar and a lot of bass and vocals are organic and coming from inside this room and not on a computer. But yeah, there's no one set way I write songs, but the lyrics do usually come last. Always. It's the hardest thing for me. The music comes really quite easy, but the lyrics are a little bit more of an effort for me. But when I'm doing scratch vocals and just coming up with like a vocal melody, I'm just like singing nonsense or gibberish, but like sometimes a phrase will come out of nowhere, and I'll like latch on to that.
Yep.
Because either it's cool, or a lot of time it's because it sings well, like it float. And that's the case with a lot of Madaila stuff. Is the melodies can be really rhythmic and kind of fast. So like I could for instance come up with a cool phrase, but it just won't fit rhythmically into that line. So I'll kind of have to. So sometimes it's more about how it sings and how it sounds. Like if it's a fast melody, it can't be like clunky coming out of your mouth, you know?
Yep.
So Yeah, lyrics come last. Sometimes I'll base it off of some phrase that came out when I'm coming up with a melody. That'll be like a good starting point and like something to work around. But yeah, that's kind of like the basis of my writing. I usually write pretty quickly. I try not to like, some people write tunes over like years, and no judgment on that. Like I've done that for sure, but I like to write quicker
Yeah.
and kind of just go with that. A lot of time go with that first instinct and not second guess too much.
Yeah. Yeah. It's usually the best
Yeah.
thing. That first time you're humming your
Yeah.
way through it, you're like, you always come back to like that first, gibberish sort of line, or the word that
Yeah.
you go, what's the word that you always sing when you're doing the
Oh,
gibberish?
come back.
Come back.
I always say come back. My wife pointed that out, and I was like, yeah, then we were listening to some demos. And I was like, man, you're right. I say come back all the time.
Yeah, I think mine is away. I always end up,
Mm,
something about that sort of word or phrase or the way it sounds. That's
yeah.
kind of the thing for
I think
me.
I say alone a lot too, because alone just sounds nice. It's not like a harsh word. It rolls
Right.
off the tongue easily.
Right.
Um, I do record a lot of voice memos too.
Yeah.
To go back to that. Like in the car, or just to like get that initial idea before it goes away. You
Right.
got to get it down.
Yeah. I know. Um,
Yeah.
so like you've mentioned it, alluded to it, and I think anyone that could look up your music on Spotify or check, like, you're pretty prolific with your output and
Oh shucks.
and writing, and like, how do you do you manufacture inspiration? Do you manufacture creativity? Is there a process for you to, are you like, I'm going to write for 2 hours every day? Or is it like, is rest good for it? Like, what's your approach for that sort of, like, for someone that's like, I just don't feel it. And do you force it? Do you push it, or do you do something different? Like what's that sort of approach for you?
Yeah, that's a good question. Um, well, alluding or going back to what I was mentioned briefly to when I had a son like 3.5 years ago, I like the writing, like things started flowing out even faster. Um, I'd say, and I don't want to jinx myself. I'm going to knock on wood already
Yeah.
right now. But like since he was born, I have had no trouble coming up with new stuff. Like
Yeah.
I don't think I've hit a writer's block since he was born. So I'm not usually forcing it too much. But I do, like, most nights come into the studio.
Yep.
It's almost like maybe slightly unhealthy. Like I don't feel satisfied or like super accomplished in a day if I don't get up here and
Yep.
create something.
Yep.
And I think that kind of goes with being a stay-at-home parent, because I'm not like going to a job and accomplishing something per se.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, it just drives me even more to want to like come up here and create. And I think I just have this natural, just like need to shed stuff, need to create. Like, and sometimes if I'm not writing music, like I'll do like some dumb comedy video
Mm-hmm.
and then like edit that. And like, I think I was saying to you the other time we were talking that editing video is similar to like cutting up a song and like structuring a song. So there's some sort of like natural inclination or just like urge for me to get to create, I think. um and What else did you
No, I mean,
where am I going with this?
it's just about like, I don't know. Like when you grow up like as a musician, especially for me as like as a trumpet player, it's like you got to practice a half an hour every day, and that sort of evolved into, well, I got all this stuff set up, I might as well start writing. And then it's like, well, I'm not really feeling it, but maybe I should edit. Maybe I should write some lyrics. Maybe I
Right.
should listen back to some stuff that didn't resonate with me then. Like there's this urge to create, and people from the outside could look at that as work. But I think people like you and me and other people in this position, it's like, it's more like flow. It's like, you're just,
Yeah.
you kind of,
A release.
and I'm like, I'll be in here for 3-4 hours a night, like working, but it does not feel like that.
Right.
And I think that that's kind of the drug to it sort of thing, where you're like
Yeah.
always making something better, always feeling like you're improving your own style or your own sound or a song or something. And it's this kind of constant like forward motion that I think we're kind of like addicted
Yeah.
to some extent, you know?
Yeah. It's funny you just said addicted, because I was literally about to say I'm addicted to songwriting.
Yeah, me too.
Um,
Yeah.
and I have been for a while, but like over the last few years, it's ramped up even more. And I say this to my therapist sometimes. I'm like, when you're that first day or two of writing a new
Oh
song
yeah. Oh
is
yeah.
like the best high. When
Completely.
you're like chasing that new idea and it's fresh and it's
Yep.
exciting, and you're like dancing around the room stoned by yourself listening to this new idea. It's just an amazing, or not stoned. I don't
Yep.
know how family friendly we are with with this thing, but yeah, it's just an amazing feeling.
Right.
And yeah, one of the greatest highs I've ever experienced in life, I think. And with a couple of these new songs, I've hit a chord and it like sparks the entire song,
Right.
or
Yeah.
like it. And this didn't happen to me as much in the past, but I'll like hit that chord and it'll like give me this feeling,
Yep.
and I'll know to go down that rabbit hole, because it gives me that like emotive, it gives me that like awesome or like emotional wave, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's cool, man. I'm with you like 100% on that sort of stuff. Like I wrote a song, maybe it was last Friday. And, I started it 6 o'clock, whatever. By midnight, I had already bounced it 6 times and had listened to it on my headphones, like outside walking around, come back. Oh, I got to fix this, and come back in. And I'm like, like had the volume up to 11 in here, just like jamming to it. And luckily, sometimes what happens is the next day you like put it back on and you're like, what was I thinking? This is horrible. Or there's like some mixed stuff that you're like, I can't believe I had the drums that high or whatever. But then sometimes you listen back through it the next day and you're like, man, that's for real. That's like, that's it. And you can kind of like, there's a level of trust that you have and happiness for yourself, even though you're the person writing it, but you're like, man, if I could high five the Friday night Will for writing this, like you're like proud of yourself, and that's like,
Yeah.
comes back to this idea of like happiness. There is that sort of level of happiness that you get from it. And like, you've been in bands, we're talking about it. I've been in bands a lot, but I love doing this stuff by myself, and to have full creative control and to be the only person to blame if it goes bad, but also the only person to congratulate when you love it, is something in there. And I don't know exactly how to put it, but there's something like that, in there. So,
Yeah. I mean, you can go through your head and be like, is this selfish or like over controlling when you're doing it by yourself? But which can be true or may not be true. But what it really comes down to is, if it's just you, it's kind of like the purest it could ever be,
Right.
because you're not getting any other outside input or influences necessarily. It's like it's all up here. Like, sure, you can like listen to a song and get inspired by it, but like there's no one else in the room that you're trying to please per se. You know what I mean? Or like, yeah, it's just it's the purest form because it's just you.
It's just you. And I try to like think about people hearing it for the first time. I try to put myself in that sort of mindset. You know, I'll bounce it down. I'll put my headphones on. I'll go walk outside, whatever. I'll be like, if someone's hearing this for the first time, what are they hearing? Are they hearing silence at the beginning? Are like, how do the drums hit? What's that sort of thing? And you start to like, that's kind of the next step after writing the song is like, what does the song mean? What does it like? How do people like
Right.
glob onto it? And then that can kind of inform that next set of edits or that next set of writing. Like, what does it sound like
Right.
for other people? I've already written the stuff for myself. Now, how can I kind of make it work a little bit better?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Um,
Yeah, lately as I've been moving through these new songs, I'll like when you said you bounced it like 6 times. It reminded me of how, yeah, I'll like almost rush to get it to a song to a good enough spot to bounce it. So then I can listen to it in the car the next morning while
Yeah.
I'm taking my son to school, you know, and there's something like very satisfying or like gratifying to that. Like just being able to bump it in the car, and listen to it the next day when you've had your mind's a little bit more clear and you've had a little bit of space away from it.
right.
And it can be awesome, or you can be like, oh, what was I thinking?
I
Or
know.
like, oh man, those vocals are way too loud.
Right. Right. I think it
Yeah,
really,
it's like a satisfying thing.
and that, I think that makes you a better engineer, makes you a better producer to be able to constantly be kind of referencing it. And I do like, you know, maybe another time we can talk about more about the depth of recording stuff, but I like add a reference track to my, you know, actual sound thing, like normally like a Beck song or like a My Morning Jacket song or something, and like mute everything else and put that back on and try to like, does it sound anything like, not like the song itself, but just like the whole,
The mix, the tones. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
What is that called? Like cross-referencing, I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to write Beck songs. That's basically what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
but
I
let's
love Beck. I've kind of forgotten about him the last year or two, but
I mean, it's still Midnight Vultures and Odelay and
yeah,
Mellow Gold, and you just like go back through all of his stuff and Guero, and I mean, it's just like it all holds up. He's like my favorite artist of all time.
nice.
But yeah, but hey, let's keep on. Let's get a little bit more, some quick hitters, you know, and then some other stuff. So like, top 3 favorite albums.
Well, before I do that, I'd want to say the thing with Beck is my biggest takeaway with him is just the fact that he's such a chameleon. Like
Right.
he'll change so much. His records are so different from each other. And they all are like sweet in their own ways. Like he pulls it off. That's my favorite thing about Beck is how like different his albums sound. And that's inspiring to me because I don't always want to sound exactly the same. I mean, no artist should be striving to sound the same all the time per se. You want to have like continuity for sure, but I just love how, and like Bowie kind of did that too.
Yep.
A lot of artists have done that, but that's one thing I really appreciate about Beck.
Yeah.
But top 3 favorite albums. Oh God.
If you had to pick, I mean, this is the desert island question. Like 3 albums, top 3 favorite.
Oh my God. Well, I was like trying to loosely think about albums because we had been talking about this, and I was like, he's probably going to ask me this question. But like, I just, for some reason, having a hard time grabbing think like grabbing which album or like thinking of albums. There's just so many out there. I think it helps me when I like have a list or I can like
Yep.
scroll down. But one I will say, and that crossed my mind, is Father John Misty's Fear Fun. It's his first record. Not only is it just a great sounding album, but I will forever love it because it was kind of like what I was listening to when I met my wife.
Oh, there you go.
And
Yep.
and I turned her onto it too. So it just kind of it brings me back to that amazing like courtship time. And like playing it in my old like GMC Jimmy in the car with her as we're like specifically one time we're riding up in the mountains and it was springtime and there were like yellow flowers in these fields.
Oh,
like,
wow.
On either side of us, just like everywhere, tons of yellow flowers. I don't think they're dandelions, or I don't think they're, dandelions. But, anyways, that record's just amazing, top to bottom. Like I usually don't. A great record to me is one that you don't like need to skip any songs.
Oh, totally.
I'm very much like into. And with my albums too, I want the whole like body of work to gel, and I don't want there to be like a skip track or like just where like top to bottom it's really solid and like cohesive. Mm-hmm. That's really important to me. So Father John Misty, Fear Fun. I don't know. I feel like I gotta give a shout out to Fish because I was super into Fish, obviously like a kid from Vermont. But like in my teens and 20s for sure. So I might just go with their first album as well, Junta. It's just has so many good songs on it. And I just have so many memories.
So yeah, right.
Like just being baked and trying to like solo along to these songs on guitar in my dorm room. Super people probably hated me. Like, and I wasn't good back then.
They did.
Like,
yeah.
Just like, oh my God, Trey, melting my face.
Yeah.
So that's 2. Number 3. I don't know. I really like In Rainbows by Radiohead.
Yeah.
It's a really solid album, top to bottom. I really like that Solange record, A Seat at the Table.
Yep.
That's a favorite. But I don't know if that'd be in my top 3. I don't know if I'm just going to list a few more. I don't know if I can like do that.
List a few more, my friend.
3, like that's just really, it's really hard. But if I was stuck on a desert island, I'd probably need to hear Otis Redding's voice too.
Yeah.
So, and with like him and Al Green, I'm such a huge fan of, but I don't know like which album is best per se.
Yeah.
I think it's because they're just from so long ago, and it may be cliche to just like throw on their greatest hits, but like they're just such good songs and their voices are just so incredible. So I'm just going to say Otis Redding. I don't have like the album specifically, but his voice just kills me.
I'm going to throw out some quick hit questions here for you. All right.
Get me, baby. One more time.
Favorite lyric of your own?
Oh God. Let me think about this for a second. This is really hard too.
I got a bunch of really hard ones right here. So I wrote like 55 questions and I think we've gotten to 12 of them. So we're going to have to do a Wolverine interviews Madaila part 2 at some point.
Right. Favorite lyric? I'm like a lyric in Excelsior crossed my mind, and I'm thinking of this a lyric from a album I wrote in between Chamberlain and Madaila. Like I haven't even put it out,
Is
but
it
I always
done?
remember really liking that lyric. This lyric.
What is it?
I'm having a hard time remembering it, but I know that it was cool. Something about the cold creeping in. Oh shit, I don't remember it. So I'll just do the Excelsior one. And this isn't probably my favorite one, but it's one that I can
It came to
grab
your head.
onto at this moment.
That's the important
And
part.
it's the chorus where it's ever upward you and I flow, positively moving through the years I'll never let go. And Excelsior means ever upward.
Right.
But that whole song is just about me when I proposed to my wife in Iceland.
Yeah.
And I was going to recite those lyrics, but I was just too nervous.
Yeah.
So I just like got right to the question. But yeah, ever upward you and I flow, positively moving through the years I'll never let go. It's fine. It's not even that great, but that's one that I thought.
That's good. What's your favorite non-musical sound? And don't say the sound of my house when my kid's asleep.
Non-musical
sound. Yep.
Probably like a softly slow moving stream, like water running,
Mm-hmm.
or a swish.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. No.
Yeah. I finally nailed a question.
I know about that. That's a good callback to the beginning.
Slow trickling water, or when you make a swish,
or just straight splash.
Yeah.
Steely Dan or Fleetwood Mac?
Fleetwood Mac.
How often do you back up the music you're recording?
Not enough. But lately I've realized how much like file size management is a thing.
Yep.
And it's been a huge learning curve for me. And these songs that these new songs I've been collabing with a bunch of people, yourself included.
Yep.
That these file sizes of these songs are huge.
Right.
So I've had like my computer is constantly like, you're out of space, disk drive full. And like due to starting to make more like videos and stuff like that, that takes up a lot of space too. So I've finally learned how to like run stuff off an external. I used to always just have it. It was just on my disk drive in my computer.
Yeah.
So the answer is sometimes, but not enough. But right now everything is on an external, but that's all it's on. So I need to put it onto another external too. It's on my radar to go to Staples or something, or just order it online, or another disk drive.
What's a local musician whose music that you love but you don't know personally?
Ooh, good question. Ooh, that I don't know. That's a little tough because it's pretty easy to know a lot of musicians in Burlington.
Or we'll just say, local musician whose music you love.
Well, definitely love Henry Jameson. His songwriting, he's a brilliant lyricist.
Brilliant.
I sometimes put on his tunes just to listen to the lyrics and get inspired by his lyrics because they're so good.
For sure.
I love Francesca Blanchard too. But again, I know both those people. I will say I really like Eric George, and I don't know him that well. but give me 2 more seconds to see if I'm like leaving someone out really, really great or obvious. Not that those three are insane. Um, but like someone that I've really been vibing with that I don't know. I've really started to love Charlie Hill, Chazzy Lake.
Yep. Yeah.
He's a great songwriter, and I don't know him super well yet. So that's a good one too. Chazzy Lake.
That's a great album that he put out
Yeah,
recently.
yeah.
That's
That song, like something about your crying eyes or something along those lines, is a great song.
It's such a cool vibe. It's like a type of music that I'll never be able to write. I've like
Yeah.
I've like accepted that. I'm like, man, that sort of style I love so much, but it's just so out of my wheelhouse. I'm like, I'll just enjoy that and never try to write anything like it because I'll just screw it up so badly.
Yeah. He's got this like vibe or swagger, or like it's like slight persona. I'm not sure if it's on purpose or if that's actually him. But I'm actually have been meaning to talk with him because it's almost got this Father John Misty vibe,
Right.
where I think if he leans a bit more into it, it could be really great. Like just the persona, like it's
Right.
just those like big sunglasses he wears.
Yeah, I know.
I love it.
Awesome videos. All right, 2 more questions. What do you suck at musically?
I was going to say lyrics, but I wouldn't say I suck. I'm just not great.
I don't think you suck at lyrics.
Well, thanks. Musically, what do I suck at? Nothing, man. not a damn thing. I can't blow a horn.
Okay. Yep.
And I kind of suck at piano. I can fake it though.
Yeah.
I learned piano in college, but I've like most of that technique has gone. Like I used to have like the right positioning, and now I kind of like,
yeah, I know. Yeah, just a couple of little fingers.
Yeah. T-Rex fingers. I'm gonna say
like piano technique is what you suck at,
or like a horn instrument or brass.
Well, you know what?
Do that.
If you suck at a horn instrument,
suck at flute.
Well, I just want to thank you for not trying to put it on your album of you playing it, because I personally appreciate being able to contribute horn to your album. And I know some people that are not horn players that are putting themselves playing on records.
Really?
So
yeah, it crossed my mind whether you're saying that because you are happy that you got to play on it, or if you just didn't want to hear such shitty horn on a record.
Both.
Yeah.
And last question. What are you really good at musically?
Writing songs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I started out as a drummer, and then guitar became my main thing. And I got pretty good at guitar, but I also knew I had a ceiling. Like there's just so many insane guitar players out there, that I knew I kind of accepted the fact that I wasn't going to be like an epic shredder. But just sort of harness in and just find my own style. Kind of like how Neil Young is technically not great, but he puts so much emotion into his soloing. I still love to play a solo. So I'd say I got pretty good at guitar, but then songwriting is just that's almost what I would lead with now. If someone asks me oh, you're a musician, what do you play? I almost don't want to say guitar anymore. I don't even play that much guitar lately. I probably should be. But it's really just what's at the forefront is writing songs. And I'll write a song, whether it's on guitar or piano or drums, so yeah, that's my answer. You're probably seeing now that I'm not a very concise person.
No, this is good, man. This is good. This is like, it's good to just work through it and talk about it. And I think you had a ton of awesome answers. Do you have
what editing's for too? Right?
Yeah, exactly. Do you have anything to plug?
I kind of did earlier, but I just want to generally plug that Madaila is still fully functional and running and is a well-oiled machine. Well, maybe I wouldn't go that far, but just that Madaila is not gone.
Yeah,
that is the true answer, and not going anywhere. My love for music is stronger than ever. We may have gone on hiatus as a band, but I have not taken a single step away from music, really. If anything, I've just been holing up in the studio and writing songs more than ever.
Yep.
And so I'll plug that Madaila is still very much alive, but also that there's what I think is an amazing record coming very soon. I'm just, for whatever reason, being a little secretive on the release date and the title, but to just like keep your eyes and ears out for an album soon that I just feel like the best way to describe it is that it's an experience.
Ooh.
I keep wanting to say like wild, but it's not wild, but it's just like it's going to take you for a ride. Like it's a whole world that's going to take you into.
That's cool, man. Yeah, I'm excited to talk more about that album specifically in the future, and I think we're planning on it. But thanks for taking the time to do this. The next time we'll do this, we'll kind of reverse roles, and you can kind of ask me some questions, and yeah, man.
Well, thank you. This is fun, and I can't wait to flip the script.
Yeah, me too.
And great, like great questions, and you turned my day around, man.
Yeah.